Signing this. Okay, folks, it is 6:30. It's 6:30, so I'm going to call to order this first ever meeting of Middleton's Finance and Personnel Committee. Bill, would you do the roll call, please?
Nairo,
Here.
Lorman,
Here.
and Jackson is not currently present. Hopefully he'll be joining us, but we do have a quorum with the 3-person committee.
Okay, thank you. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the April 16th, 2024 Finance Committee meeting. Any corrections or comments?
None.
All right, hearing none, the minutes of the April 16th, 2024 Finance Committee meeting are accepted as circulated. Next item is the audit of the bills. Bill, do we have any updates?
No additions tonight, just noting that there's the regular report and the April credit cards tonight.
Yep, we've got them both here and I'll leave them for Alder Jackson to sign. All right, then can we get a motion to approve the audit of the bills?
So made.
And I will second that. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the audit of the bills signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Moving on to resolutions, we have two. First one is Resolution 2024-12, supporting the United Way of Dane County fiscal year 2025-26 Vision Council Investment Grant Application for the Middleton Youth Center. I read it wrong. It's the Vision Council Investment. Got it. Okay. May I have a motion?
I so make a motion to approve it.
And I will second that. And now discussion. And I wonder if Kylie, anyone would like to make a comment about that? I'm really glad we're getting support from United Way. And I wonder how much is the grant application for? It says here that we previously received $12,500. Is that the same amount?
It's on. We are looking to increase that amount. We are working with them to hopefully take a look at an amount that would cover our support staff. That with benefits and everything looks like 40,000, but we are trying to figure out if what request is appropriate. They are open to having a higher amount. This was the first fiscal or the grant that they awarded to the Middleton Youth Center. So they wanted to start off at a smaller amount, but they have been encouraging to a higher grant amount. So we are in discussion with them at what our seasonal support staff it could cover. And for all of our seasonal support staff in a fiscal year, it's about $40,000.
Okay, great. And are there any other grants that that you know of that we might try to pursue to get funding for the youth center?
We are talking through that. We work with the Kiwanis Club, and I have a meeting coming up with the Kiwanis Club to discuss our partnership with the parks and with the youth center, and looking at if that could be are negotiated at all. And then also with the school district. So those are our two other sources of revenue we'd like to have conversations on for supporting and funding. But we are looking at future and other funding. But I think that those three we really wanted to start with first and foremost.
Okay, great. Alder Lorman, do you have any questions?
In the past, I know we've got some money from some of the other community groups and foundations like Goodman and, some of those other slightly larger, but definitely more interested in this type of outreach and philanthropic work. Is there any of that on the list, or if you want to look back historically, kind of what we did?
Yeah, I can definitely look back a little bit further on that. Our rec team is working on a sponsorship program for our entire department, but also highlighting what that might look like for the youth center specifically and for some of our rec programs. So if there is sort of a sponsorship with some of local businesses, that is another opportunity that we want to look into as well. But as far as Goodman and that, I can write those notes down and take a look and see if we can go back to request any funds from previous donors for sure. So
Yeah, I just know that some of those foundations in the Madison area, it's sometimes a matter of going to them and reminding them that we're here.
yeah,
Because that, they support the kind of stuff that we're doing where we're saying anybody and everybody's welcome. That kind of a, mindset, and that's what they.
yeah. If you guys have any other ideas, we're super super happy to hear those and reach out to anybody that you guys come up with. But we have a list of 3 that we're for sure tackling and coming up with sponsorship programs. So that's kind of in our near future of task lists for the youth center and funding.
Great. Alder Jackson, we're talking about the United Way of Dane County fiscal year of support for youth center. Do you have any questions for? Okay, thank you, Kylie. Okay. Forgive me, the heat's battling my brain. Did we get a motion?
We have a motion. We need to vote yet.
Okay. I figured if we did, it was the 2 of us. Okay, so we have a motion. We have a second. No further discussion. So all those in favor of approving resolution 2024-12, supporting the United Way of Dane County fiscal year 2025-26 Vision Council Investment Grant application for the Middleton Youth Center, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Okay. Okay. Moving on to our second resolution. It's resolution 2024-19, amending the 2024 approved capital project fund budget and park development fund budget for the Lake Street and Dewey Court reconstruction project. Can we get a motion to approve?
Norman will make that motion.
This is Jackson. I'll second.
Thank you. Discussion. I had a comment and a question. The question is, when and how do we assign zoning district and flu map designation for this parcel that right now is right of way?
Part of a different agenda item tonight is an amendment for MSA to do construction phase services. And among those services is to create a park parcel. So then we'll have to vacate the right of way and dedicate that to the public as park.
Okay, great. And then also, it isn't a parklet, I don't think. On page 8, it refers to a parklet. Yeah.
It was referred to a few things because we didn't know if it was for sure going to be part of.
Yeah.
I'll just repeat that. There's really no such thing as a parklet. Internally, we were calling it that just because it's such a small park, but it's just a park.
Okay. And there is such a thing as a parklet.
Oh.
But it's more like parking spaces outside of a restaurant that are blocked off to be used.
Then it's
for-
doubly unfortunate.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving resolution 2024-19, amending the 2024 approved capital budget, capital project fund budget and park development fund budget for the Lake Street and Dewey Court reconstruction project, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Okay. Moving on then to agreements and contracts, we have 3. The first one is amendment number 1 to engineering services agreement with MSA for construction phase services for Lake Street and Dewey Court reconstruction. And this comes to us from Public Works. And we're looking for a motion to recommend to council the approval of a contract amendment with MSA in an amount not to exceed $121,800 for construction phase services related to the Lake Street and Dewey Court reconstruction.
Deb Lorman on Public Works, so approves.
Okay. Alder Jackson, would
This
you?
is Jackson. I'll second that.
Great. Any discussion?
There is none from.
Okay.
my per-
Okay, I had one comment, and that is on page 11 of the packet. The first paragraph of this amendment is different than the first paragraph on page 22 for another amendment to a different agreement. And I just wonder if our city attorney can comment on which paragraph is preferred for future amendments.
I mean, I think,
It seems like consistency would be a good
Right.
thing.
yeah, I did not draft these, but I think, sorry, I'm just trying to get to that page here.
The one on page 11 is just very short, and then they're both short, but the one on page 22 makes a reference to, whoa,
And the language you're talking was at the beginning of. Sorry, I looked at this earlier because I did see a copy of your email, but. Yeah, the statement about the amendment being intended
Yep.
to be consistent with all the terms.
yep, and I'm okay with either one, and I'm okay with each one tonight, but I think in the future, it'd be nice to have some consistency in the amendment language.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't know if it's material, but I certainly understand your desire for consistency.
Okay. Okay, so keeping it the way it is, all those in favor, or any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving the motion to recommend to council the approval of a contract amendment with MSA in an amount not to exceed $121,800 for construction phase services related to the Lake Street and Dewey Court reconstruction, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. All right. Number 2 on our list of agreements and contracts, amendment number 3 to engineering services agreement number 18-127A with Emmons and Olivier Resources, Inc. for Pheasant Branch floodplain remapping. This comes to us from the Water Resources Management Commission. And we're looking for a motion to recommend to council the approval of amendment number 3 to the engineering services agreement, number 18-127A with Emmons and Olivier, to conduct the first 2 phases of the Pheasant Branch floodplain remapping project with an anticipated completion date in 2024.
Lorman, so make that motion.
Thank you.
This is Jackson. I'll second.
Thank you. Discussion. I have a couple of questions for Sean. Sorry. Sean, you should always sit in the front row.
So close.
These will be simple. I'm just wondering how on page 17, it makes a reference to, I think it's an extra 60,000 and maybe 8,000 more for the FEMA fee if we decide to go for DNR and FEMA approval. So how would DNR and FEMA approval benefit us? Like the city, its businesses, its residents?
I think it becomes actual mapping then, which has some, that confers some legal standing to this all.
Okay.
Beyond that, I think it's just advisory for the city's use.
Okay. Okay.
So the mapping work we do then becomes a document that they incorporate into GIS mapping.
It's both physically mapped graphically like that, but its better value is really for modeling.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of approving amendment number 3, or I'm sorry, of approving a recommendation to council to approve amendment 3 to engineering services agreement number 18-127A with Emmons and Olivier Resources, Inc. to conduct the first 2 phases of the Pheasant Branch floodplain remapping project with an anticipated completion date in 2024, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. There are no opposed because it's just the 3 of us, so it passes. Moving on to our third agreement and contract, consideration and potential action on memorandum of agreement with Wisconsin State Historical Preservation Office for citywide historic survey. Alder Jackson, you're on this committee. Would you like to
Yes.
make the motion?
I make a motion that we approve this.
Thank you.
Lorman second.
Thank you. Discussion.
Actually, this is something that I advocated for in our last meeting.
Oh, good.
Because there was a survey they were choosing to use from 1996, and I remember council had approved a citywide survey. So as a matter of fact, I had it tabled until the survey was complete.
Oh, great. Thank you, because, yeah, it's nice to have updated data.
Yes.
1996 was
And
one.
that was my concern. We were going off of data from 1996. Is so many things have happened in 2024. And then if the council approved to give you the funding for the survey, then let's move forward with it. And let's not make any haste decisions.
Great. Thank you for your advocacy. Alder Lorman?
So maybe in theory, we should have more historical stuff added now since.
Yes, that was
That's
in the
a
conversation.
possibility.
That was the plan, that after the survey, we might end up with more historical stuff.
Yeah, because that stuff has aged
Yes.
since 1998, so, or 1996, so now there's,
That would put me on there.
yeah, old stuff. Okay. Well, if there's no further discussion, oh, and I understand the only deliverable appears to be the survey report, and that's good. So all those in favor of approving the memorandum of agreement with Wisconsin State Historical Preservation Office for citywide historic survey signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it.
And just for information purposes, we came to the conclusion that the survey will probably take up to 18 months.
Okay, 18 months. Good to know. Okay, moving on to bids and quotes. We have two. First one is award of bid to Speedway Sand and Gravel, Inc. in the amount of $1,383,028.80 for Lake Street and Dewey Street reconstruction. And we're looking for a motion to
Okay,
recommend to
Lorman
council
will-
approving
yep.
that.
Coming from Public Works, Lorman will make a motion that we do approve this.
Great. Alder Jackson,
This is Jackson. I'll second.
thank you. Discussion.
Nothing really comes to mind that we really went over in Public Works on this that popped up, so. And Sean's here if you had any other input.
I have a couple questions.
So,
First of all, on page 39, it makes a reference to the Franklin Street water main replacement being deferred. Is that because of the need for funding for this or other reasons?
Oh, it's because, yeah, we weren't able to get to design this year.
Okay,
That's
good to know.
last year, actually.
to get to design. Okay, and now what contingency is built into this? Because I remember when we looked at this, when Public Works looked at this in March, I think there was a 15% contingency built in.
I don't know that there is in this because this is actual bid numbers. Usually an estimate carries contingency, but firm bid numbers usually don't.
Okay. And then, so the lowest bid came out to be about $29,000 less than the estimated budget that the Public Works Committee reviewed back on March 11th. But that estimate included $70,000 for the pier and kayak launch, and that's now deferred until next year. So in other words, the bid for, or the total cost of the project is actually going to be $41,000 over what we thought in March.
Oh, I
Mike.
think I missed that.
Okay. I'm just wanting to be, I mean, it's an,
Because there is that future cost. You're right.
right. And that's okay, but I'm curious, did the solicitation of bids ask for the pier and kayak launch to be included?
I think we removed that prior to opening, right? Through an addendum. Yeah.
And
That-
it
that was my
was
recollection.
because of the permitting that's required? What's
There's
going on
the
with that?
timing of the permitting through
Okay.
DNR was such that it was getting less and less likely that we'd actually get the road constructed this year
Okay,
while waiting for that. But also, by the time the contractor bought the pier and put it in, it would be about time to take it out.
okay. Okay, that makes sense. And any update, maybe Kylie, this is for you, on the status of our conversations with the state and county related to the grants we previously received for the boat launch?
Yeah. With the mitigation plan with that, we've been working with MSA and we've within that entire letter of all the bullet points that we needed to hit for that mitigation plan with that funding. We have met all those. We have one piece left, which is a sign during construction rerouting, where rerouting to other boat launches would be during construction phase. And that's the last piece that they asked for, but everything's going through for approval on the DNR grant permitting. And it's all set to go from what I understand, working with MSA and Emma from MSA and then Cheryl from DNR. So,
Okay, great. And it doesn't look like we'll have to pay back any of the money?
no, that was within the mitigation plan, as
Okay.
long as we hit all of that and it's all been approved.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so all those, any further questions?
No.
All right, then all those in favor of recommending to council the approval of a construction contract to Speedway Sand and Gravel Inc. in the amount of $1,383,028.80 for the Lake Street and Dewey Court reconstruction project, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Did you say aye?
Yes.
Sorry. Okay, moving on to our second bid or quote. It's the award of quote to Grant Signs for the purchase of an entrance sign for the Pleasant View Golf Course. Can we get a motion?
I want to make a motion, we approve that.
Thank you.
This is Jackson. I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll just say I like the look. I like the logo. It's very cool. So all those in favor of approving the award of quote to Grant Signs for the purchase of an entrance sign for the Pleasant View Golf Course signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope, the ayes have it. Okay. Moving on to miscellaneous, we have 4 items. And I'm mindful of the time because we want to wrap up in time to get ready for our council meeting. First item is the review of property tax and other impacts of a proposed corporate boundary adjustment, which is the detachment of lands from Middleton for the community of Bishop's Bay. I'm going to ask staff for an overview, and Mr. Wall, I am aware of your desire to speak, and I will give you an opportunity to do so for 3 minutes, just like we do for council meetings, after we hear from staff first. So Bill, we can start with you.
Yeah, thank you. So included in your packet is the memo with the staff analysis, along with several pages of supporting information to explain where the estimate came from and the calculations. This memo was prepared in response to a recommendation from the Plan Commission that the council evaluate the property tax implications of the proposed attachment of 100.8 acres from the city in the community of Bishop's Bay, which would be removed from the city and go to the town of Westport. This analysis looks at the estimates of the potential long-term revenue loss for the city from the potential long-term development of that property within the city. That is an estimate, and that estimate was prepared based on the current zoning and the approved master development plan for the community of Bishop's Bay neighborhood. And essentially, this is looking at the opportunity cost if this area were removed from the city. What is the lost potential for development based on the current approved plan and current density that would be authorized within that area? From a fiscal policy perspective, the city should be very cautious about any reduction in future development areas, given that increases in the city's operating property tax levy are limited by net new construction growth. As noted in the memo, the city of Middleton has relatively few growth areas, primarily to the north and the northeast, due to constraints with City of Madison, Lake Mendota, and agreements with other townships. And with limited growth areas, that's something that the council and finance committee should consider with anything that may limit future growth in those areas. A full fiscal impact study that would also look at operating cost impacts of development would require additional information and analysis and is beyond the scope of what we were able to put together for this meeting. I did want to note, however, that in considering capital costs of development, it's important to note that regional infrastructure costs would serve more than just this 108-acre proposed attachment area, but a lot of those regional costs would serve all of the remaining areas to be developed in this neighborhood within the city. So it would be important to consider the impact on those future areas, in that if you are detaching this territory, you are removing areas that would be served by those improvements, which potentially could make it more challenging to finance those improvements if their costs are spread over a smaller area. And also, when considering the fiscal impact of the detachment, you should not consider that those capital costs would need to be covered fully from this 100 acres, as there's a larger area in the Middleton Utility District that was established to finance those regional improvements. So included in the memo is an analysis of that potential opportunity cost, looking both at total property tax revenue as well as potential impact on the city's net new construction and property tax levy limit, and supporting information showing the calculation for the number of potential units, and then looking at assessed values of other similar development in the city to come up with those estimates. That I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Does anyone have questions for Bill at this time?
It's a big one.
If not, I mean, we can always come back to ask Bill questions. And in the meantime, we can go to our two commenters now. So we have Terrence Wall, 1818 Parmenter Street, the community representing Community of Bishops Bay, and Jake Bunce, also 1818 Parmenter Street, also Community of Bishops Bay. We'll start with Mr. Wall. And just a tip.
Okay, let's start, Jake.
Sure, we can start with Jake. Go ahead, Jake. You can
Thanks.
begin.
So just to touch on, and I actually got a chance to talk to Bill this afternoon, which I'm thankful for. But just to touch on the analysis, and Terrence and I had a chance to review it as well. It was done based off, or I guess the property tax revenue was calculated based off the, oh, thank you.
And Jake, just a reminder, three minutes. And
Yeah,
I'm just gonna
that's fine.
start timing now, so you actually got a few extra seconds.
Oh, thank you. The property tax revenue, rightfully so, was based off of the current density in the MDP that was approved in the MDP. So I think it was up to like 6 units per acre or something like that. And I think the density that was calculated, I think it was like 5 or something less than that. The reality with the development is it's just not feasible for us to build at 5 units or 6 units per acre. It's not what we specialize in, our firm as developers, and even with a Viridian type home or a red tail, that would be extremely tight. What we do, or our sweet spot in development, is probably around like anywhere from 1 to 1.5 units per acre. And what we propose as part of this, I know I'm away from the mic, but as part of the GIP amendment, you can see the current boundary line is this red line right here. The future boundary line, what we're proposing, is this red line right here. This area only has about 54 units in a 65 acre area. So it's around 0.9 units per acre. So the whole detachment area is 108 acres. You got to take out the cemetery that's existing, that's 20 acres. The multifamily land, which is about 23 acres, and that leaves you about 65 acres and 54 units. So given that and what's possible with what we can do there, just with density, what we can build, you have to remove the stormwater, the public roads from that acreage count, the parkland, the cemetery. So there's just not a lot of land left to put that many units. So with that being said, oh, thanks. This is what, Terrence kind of sent out an email relaying this earlier today or last night. But
Jake, can you grab the microphone?
yes, yeah. Yeah, so kind of what I went through. Total acres of the detachment area, minus the tax exempt property, which is a cemetery, minus the multifamily property, gives you 66 acres left. I think I said 65. And then based on our plan, 54 units at 66 acres is like 0.8 units per acre. And then, so we took our, based off Bill and Abby's numbers, we took, 54 units times the average assessment per unit, which they came up with at 625 grand per unit, for a total assessed value of almost 34 million. So you can see that times the city mill rate is only 186,000. That's quite a bit less than the 1.1 or $1.2 million in property tax revenue that Bill had come up with. So I just wanted to highlight that, 'cause the big thing is the density in units per acre of what's in the MDP, which is not really feasible versus what we can actually build and plan on building in this area. So hopefully I didn't go over 3 minutes.
Just hit it. Perfect.
Sweet. Oh.
Okay, thank you. So he talked about revenue and what's physically possible there, given the cemetery, the open space, stormwater pond, parks. Most of Bishop's Bay, 60% is open space. So we can't, do more than what is allowed. But I'm going to talk about costs. So the costs of the Westport side is about $50 million. Cost of the Middleton side is about $67 million. There's a couple little bit overlaps, so call it $110 million of costs, capital costs to develop this land, okay? 110 million, so that's a lot. So that's why we do things in phases. We do about 30 to 35, 40 lots per year or per phase, and then it takes us about 2 years to sell most of it in a third year with a tail. So a typical phase, you'll run you, 10, $15 million. So we can't finance the regional infrastructure. For example, just this 108 acres, just to do that, we would need either the regional water loop, according to Sean, although we meet the state requirement for pressure, et cetera, or the town. If it was left into the town, then we would do a water tower in the town and they would finance that. So there's about $12 million of regional costs, as Bill correctly said. That covers a lot of other lands. The lift station could cover other lands in the valley there. The water tower or the water loop would cover other lands. So there's a lot of regional costs, and normally those are financed by the city. Like Madison would put that in their water utility district. They would build the tower, the regional trunk lines, and they would finance that themselves through the rates in that utility district. Or it could be done through TIF or through a special assessment district. Typically, it's a utility district, and there is a utility district set up for this area. So there's a lot of costs. The interest on that regional part is about $1 million a year to the city. So just so you understand, if you keep the land, you're going to have more costs and less revenue from this 108 acres. If you detach it, we can build some of those regional costs. We can take those and finance those through the town and get those taken care of. For example, Onken Road. Right now, the boundary line runs diagonally through Onken Road. It's like half in the town, half in the city, but it's diagonal. It's like running from this corner to that corner. It's not on one side or the other. If it's in the town, we can apply for a town agricultural grant and potentially get that paid for through a grant. I believe the city can't do that. So there's some advantages to having that 100 acres in the town. Now, there's still regional costs in the city for the rest of the city development, and you still need to come up with a plan. But at least we can do this, take care of a lot of these things, like the water loop would be eliminated because we'd build a water tower. We'd have a pipe connecting to the city with a valve. If you ever have a break on the Highway Q pipe, you open the valve and that flow comes from the water tower into the city. So there's a lot of advantages to the detachment. And then lastly, in summary, we did agree back in 2007 to 2010 when we were getting the approvals on this project, we were required to straighten out this line. That is a specific requirement to do that. So We are coming to you as per we were required to straighten out the line and make it clear as to where emergency services go, police, fire, et cetera, as to who builds Onken Road, who doesn't. But if you decide to keep this 108 acres, then I would ask you to direct, Bill, who's very competent at this sort of thing and very creative, direct him to come up, start working on a financing plan for the regional infrastructure in that area so that we could proceed. Because we've been dead in the water on the city side. We're at the top of the hill. We can't go down without the lift station, the force main, et cetera, et cetera. You've heard it all. And so we just need some kind of financing plan for that, like the town provides us. And that's going to cover a lot of other lands that we don't own. So that's it. I hopefully stayed in time. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so. May I go first?
Yeah.
So Bill, I have a question for you. When you did your calculations, did you take out the tax exempt and multifamily properties?
Yes, the analysis took out the 20 acres that's largely tax exempt, and it considered the multifamily area separately from the single family area. So it looked at, based on the information that was in the master development plan, how many lots were shown as potentially being developed within that single family area.
Okay, and can you help me understand the alleged discrepancy between 186,000 in property tax revenue versus your estimate?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to the level of density that would be developed. The information that was included in the staff memo was, again, based on the approved master development plan and the zoning. My understanding of the numbers that were just presented is that is what is proposed if this area is detached and would be developed in the town, where you would anticipate that there would be a lower level of density. These are all projections. I can't tell you this is the correct number, but I think that that's a big difference between looking at the information in the staff analysis, which included lots with minimum lot sizes of 4,500 to 6,000 square feet compared to 1 acre or 1 acre plus lots. One thing I would note is that in looking at the average assessed value per lot, the information in the staff analysis was based on those smaller lot sizes and looking at other development on similar lot sizes within Bishop's Bay or elsewhere within the city. And if you were looking at 1 acre plus lots, you would likely have a different average assessed value for those larger lot developments.
Okay. And then question about the straightening out of the line. I don't know if that's something you can answer, Bill, but and actually, never mind, because it's not related to financing. Any questions from my colleagues? Okay, so at this time, let's go through the issues, starting with number 1 in the memo. If you could bring that back up, Bill. I can tell my colleagues that when this came before the Plan Commission, I think one of my first questions was, wait a minute, didn't the city just annex this property? I guess it's 15 years ago, showing on the screen. And it seems to me like annexation is, I would liken it to having a child, right? You can get married and know that that could be temporary, right? But if you're going to have a child, you're kind of buying into having that child for the rest of your life. And it seems to me that annexation should only happen if we're 99% sure there's no reason to go back. That just seems like a very serious step that shouldn't be taken lightly. So just from a policy perspective, I'm not comfortable annexing land and then saying, never mind. Thoughts?
That was my also conclusion in reviewing this. It seemed to, if you annex land and we're committing to doing the development, then I think we are committed from day one. That doesn't mean what we said, I guess, at the beginning of it can't change down the road, but we are certainly committed to the process of supporting the development and doing what it takes to see that we get where we need to go, and we need to work with the developer. If there's challenges, then I think we need to at least listen to the developer and see what the developer has to say for ideas, so on and so forth. Because I can't sit here and say, oh, I'm capable of making those decisions and have that in-depth knowledge of development, because I simply don't, and would not be appropriate for me to go down that road.
Okay.
But as a citizen representative, I'm trying to put myself in the real position as a citizen, as a lay person of the city who says, I don't know, what do I know about this kind of stuff other than the fact that the city committed to making this happen, and well, I guess now we have to make it happen.
Well, and also, I mean, there is a master development plan, which I could be wrong, but I think is a commitment not to, I understand things can change and often need to change, but it seems to me that the current master development plan is a plan, that it wasn't just the city committing to this development. And issue number 2, the reduction in the number of potential housing units. I mean, that's what leads to the property tax base loss. And the restriction on our levy limit increase, which, as the Finance and Personnel Committee, I think is the key concern. We just saw a presentation in the Plan Commission about the 3 major development projects in the city, Red Tail Ridge and Bell Farm in my district, and then Bishop's Bay and Alder Crow's district. And Bishop's Bay was still on the list, but didn't show anything except the 5 single-family homes planned for this year. And, I guess I'm with Alder Lorman. I would like to figure out how we can spur development in Bishop's Bay without detaching the property and without compromising our goals for greater housing density. It was observed at the Plan Commission, not by me, that the larger lots is actually something that our new zoning code is trying to move us away from because of the need for housing. And if that means we have to figure out a way to make smaller lots affordable, and sellable, then I think that's what we need to start thinking about. And then issue number 4 is the impact on utility costs, those being spread among fewer properties in the service area. And I think that's a problem too. So I don't know about my colleagues, but on all 4 issues, I'm inclined to say no to the detachment or to recommend to council that we say no.
Yeah, I mean, it's big, it's complicated, and this was started way before I was ever here, and I'd be leery about, any of us coming along and just saying, oh, we're going to change course after, in this case, literally decades of commitment to make something happen in one direction. And I think out of all fairness, I want to hear, in all fairness, it's also important to work with and listen to the developer. There may be other considerations and things here. I know we're very committed as a city to build affordable housing, workforce housing, dense housing, more opportunity for people to buy homes and this and that. Is that what the market wants? Is that what the market needs? Is that what the market's going to pay for? Or does the market want and need and pay for simply larger lots, larger homes because there's people in the metro area want that? I can't answer that question. So I would like this to go to Common Council. I would like Common Council to really think about this and get into it and think hard and go back to the city. Put a lot of pressure on Bill saying, you're some kind of wizard. You're gonna wave your wand and we're gonna find a way to everybody get together. But I think it's important to send that kind of message, maybe moving forward. I just don't want to shut anybody down in this, but I'm leery about walking backwards.
I too agree with both council members, especially. I keep hearing commitment. We made a commitment. And I think that we should follow the process and hold to the commitment that was made and figure out what we can do to make this happen. We just can't, even though I also as Alder Lorman, I wasn't even here 15 years ago when this commitment was made, but I think all parties agreed upon a commitment. So I think all parties need to come back to the table and say, hey, how can we honor this and make this happen and go forward?
Okay. So, Bill, do you need a recommendation? I know this will go before the Common Council because that is part of the motion from, or the referral from Plan Commission. Do you need us to make the motion and indicate our leaning?
I think it is somewhat up to the committee. As you noted, the Plan Commission recommendation was specifically referred to council because of the financial impact. It made sense to bring this to Finance Committee first. I think the Finance Committee could certainly make a recommendation to the council, and then the council would recommend to Plan Commission. But it's not an item that requires formal action.
Would either of you like to make a motion? You do that? Yeah.
We're making a motion to refer it to council.
Well, it's going to council regardless, but if we want to make a motion, we could indicate that the Finance and Personnel Committee is not endorsing the idea of attaching or detaching lands from Middleton.
I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with that too.
Okay, so I guess I'll make that motion. What was the motion I made, Bill?
Right now, just have that the Finance and Personnel Committee does not endorse the proposed detachment of territory.
Okay, thank you. Does not endorse. It's the heat. I'm telling you, it's the heat and the thunder.
Now, this is also a conversation that is going to be heard by council.
Yes, this will go to council. If I understand the timeline, it'll go to council 2 weeks from now. And then the week after that, it will go to the Plan Commission.
That's my understanding.
Okay.
Can I just ask, is there any thoughts about the cleaning up of the edge? It was something I brought up at Plan Commission, I believe, because of the long-term police response. And so for those who are not on Plan Commission, just want to make you aware that on the southeast side of Middleton, where the Madison-Middleton border is, it's like every other house is Madison. So sometimes when there's an incident, both show up and they try and figure out which one it is. So it's not like this side of the road is Madison and this side is Middleton. It's literally on this side of the road is every other.
Yep.
And so in the response time, it's actually inefficient because they're trying to figure out who's in charge, whose jurisdiction. And then they spend time like getting there.
Sure.
And so that was part of the reason I wanted a little bit more discussion. So I'm glad that you guys are having these discussions.
Madam Mayor, I did start to bring it up and then I corrected myself because since this is Finance and Personnel and it was specifically about the property tax and other impacts related to finances, I think that's a conversation that maybe the council and definitely the Plan Commission can have.
Thank you. And thank you for reminding me.
Okay, so all those in favor of.
Excuse me, I have the motion. I didn't hear who the second was.
This is Jackson, I second.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so all those in favor of the motion to let council know that the Finance and Personnel Committee does not endorse the detachment of lands from Middleton for the community of Bishop's Bay, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Okay, moving on to miscellaneous item number 2, Finance Personnel Committee appointment to the Water Resources Management and Stormwater Utility Commission, a new merged committee that does not lend itself to acronymizing. I'm willing to do it if my fellow members are interested. I previously served on WRMC in my first year in council. And I think I've mentioned to both of you, the stormwater utility referendum is a major priority for me in my second term, and I would appreciate your support.
Lorman would so support that. Make that motion.
Thank you.
This is Jackson, I second the motion.
All right, so all those in favor, and I will refrain from voting.
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate that. Moving on, item number 3, update on first quarter 2024 investment reports. This is from staff.
Thank you. Yeah, the reports for March, February, and January of 2024 are included in the packet. There have not been any major changes since the previous quarter. Weighted average yield of the portfolio is currently at about 4.07%. It came up a little bit in December and January when we had additional short-term tax collection funds that we could invest at short-term rates, which currently are higher than if you go out 3 to 5 years. But our strategy remains the same, that we are holding investments to maturity. We are taking advantage of high short-term rates by holding some additional money in cash and up to 1 year, but still investing a portion of the portfolio in the 3 to 5 year time frame in order to give us some protection if interest rates do start to move down in the future. Currently, at this point in the year, the Federal Reserve has not moved to decrease short-term interest rates. We're continuing to see investments and purchasing investments that are short-term or callable in the 5.5% to 6%. And then we've also purchased a couple of investments out to 4 and 5 years that are earning between about 4.2 and 4.3%.
Thank you. Any questions from members? All right. Thanks, Bill. Moving on to item number 4, update on first quarter 2024 general fund financial reports.
Yep, and we report on this quarterly for the general fund. I would say that after the first quarter with only 3 months of actuals, it's very difficult to draw conclusions. For the revenues, the items that are projected at a variance from the budget are primarily items where we saw, based on trends in last year, that perhaps we're trending a little higher or a little lower. The most significant item is on page 2, the interest on investments. As you recall, we ended up with a very large surplus at the end of last year, driven partially by vacancies, but also investment income. We had budgeted $500,000 and ended at about $1.25 million for the general fund. The 2024 budget is also set at $500,000. Right now, the projection is at $750,000. That may be low, although it's early in the year and I don't want to predict what interest rates are going to do. But I think based on the investments that we have, that we will see some level of surplus for interest income, and we'll be able to refine that amount as we get farther into the year. Also on the expenditure side, you'll see most of the projections at this point are the budgeted amounts. We'll be getting projections from departments based on 6 months data as we start our budget process this summer. The one item that's really noted as a variance right now is the contingency items, which at this point we have not allocated any of the general contingency. Happy to answer questions, but you'll be getting more information after second quarter and as we start the budget process.
Okay, great. Thank you, Bill. Any questions for Bill? All right. All right, then we have reached the end of our agenda. We stand adjourned. And can I make an appeal for some